Molweni and welcome to Xhosa Roots. I am Thapelo, the founder and creator of the Xhosa Roots platform. Today we are diving into the fascinating world of Xhosa phonology. So whether you are a complete beginner or have some experience with Xhosa, this video will help you understand the unique sounds that make this language so rich and so beautiful. Masbepa. Xhosa, natively referred to as isiXhosa, is a Nguni Bantu language spoken by about 8 to 11 million people, primarily in South Africa. It is known for its complex sound system, which includes clicks, aspiration, and tones. In this video, we are going to break down these elements step by step. Before we do that, it may be worthwhile to ask just what is a language in essence. I think a language is just an agreed upon set of sounds and their combinations thereof. And those sounds and their combinations are then associated with standard meanings to make communication possible. A language then is just a group of sounds. Like the way digits work with numbers to convey quantities and other concepts related to the world around us, and sometimes to describe reality itself. Today's episode focuses on Xhosa phonology. Let's start by looking at the definition of phonology. Phonology is the study of the sound system of a language. It's how the sounds are organized, pronounced, and how they interact with each other. Today, we'll explore the phonological features that make the Xhosa language stand out. And we're going to start with vowels. Xhosa has 5 basic vowels, but the vowels in Xhosa, similar to a few other languages around the world, are also distinguished by their length, so that the 5 basic vowels can appear as either long or short. This distinction in length between long and short vowels is phonemic, and so it's crucial for both pronunciation and for meaning. As a result, the Xhosa language has 10 vowels in total. Here's how they look and sound. We have I, U, E, O, and A. A more familiar sequence is the one that we learned in school many years ago. I'm not sure if it's still the same, but we used to recite these as A, E, I, O, and U. So these are the short vowels. I will repeat, but this time with some examples. I, found in inja, a dog. U, found in umtu, a person. E, as in endle, in the wilderness. O, as in bomvu, red. And A, as in amaza, waves. These would be the ocean waves. Vowels can also be organized according to other articulatory features, such as back or front, and close, mid, or open. Since vowels are similar in practically every language, save for a few nuances, they generally tend to be easier to learn to pronounce when you're learning a new language. But if you are interested in delving deeper into these other categorizations, let me know in the comments, and we can make another video for that. Now for the long vowels. It's worth noting here that even though their existence is quite simple to establish, we know there's short and then there's long vowels. We can see them in the language or when they appear like in different words in the language. So it's quite simple to establish the existence of these long vowels. But the lengthening process itself is quite a complex one. So here are the long vowels. E, A, O, and A. So for E, we have E. For U, we have U. For A, we have A. For O, we have O. And for A, we have A. As already said earlier, these vowels are phonemic, which means they are capable of changing the meaning of words and can contribute to grammatical structure. The distinction between the long and short vowels is sometimes contrastive, which contributes to the phonemic nature of these vowels, meaning that their appearance can change the meaning of a word, and sometimes they are non-contrastive, meaning that they sometimes appear without necessarily changing the meaning of the word. Here are some examples. Two of the vowels, E and O, when applied as noun class prefixes, that is noun class 10 and 2A respectively, they indicate the plural, so it's plurality. For inkosi, which is singular, we have inkosi, which is chiefs. We have omama, mothers, as opposed to umama, a mother. Both instances are contrastive. They change the meaning. They affect the meaning of the words. In this case, like I said, they indicate plurality. In both these cases, these vowels are contrastive. This type of lengthening represents a morphological change. In other instances, the transformation occurs as a result of the penultimate lengthening process. But we're not going to cover that here, save for just providing some examples. U, for example, we have vula, which is open, but it changes in length when it's applied in the phrase bayayivula incwadi. They do open the book. Then we have a. Here is an example. Mgqibelo is Saturday. Balima ngomgqibelo. They plow on Saturday. Balima ngomgqibelo. Again, we have the lengthening there, which is related to the penultimate lengthening process. Then we have a, as in incwadi, a book. Incwadi, a book. We also have a click there. When applied in a phrase, bavula incwadi, there's a lengthening there. Bavula incwadi versus incwadi. They are opening a book. Bavula incwadi. In these instances, the meaning is not affected. Another interesting thing is that if you lengthen the A vowel in ba, as in bavula incwadi, then the phrase changes to past tense. When you say bavula incwadi, then the meaning changes to they opened a book. Opened, it becomes a past tense. So there's various occasions or circumstances under which the lengthening process takes place. And this is another example of the lengthening process is changing the meaning of a word or affecting the meaning of a phrase. The process of vowel lengthening in Xhosa then is really an interesting one. But please do share if you are interested in a more in-depth video focusing on vowels and vowel lengthening in Xhosa. Now for the even more exciting part, Xhosa consonants. But before getting into the consonants themselves, let's take a look at the mechanisms by which these sounds are produced. To really get the Xhosa consonant sounds and maybe have an easier time reproducing them if you are new to the language, it may help to understand the mechanisms by which these sounds are produced. Xhosa consonants are produced using 4 different airstream mechanisms. We have sounds that are produced by air from the lungs, these are pulmonic sounds, and this is by far the most common airstream mechanism for producing sounds in virtually all languages. We have sounds that are produced by air generated in the oral cavity, and these are velaric sounds. The velaric sounds specifically are the clicks. So this is quite rare in languages around the world. And Xhosa, as you well know, has quite a large number of these, 18 to be more specific. We have sounds that are produced by air that's compressed above the glottis, and these are the ejective sounds. And then lastly, we have sounds that are produced by drawing air into the vocal tract by lowering the larynx. And these sounds are the implosive or implosive sounds. These mechanisms contribute to 66 consonant phonemes that are found in the Xhosa language. And these include the 18 clicks that I've already mentioned, the velaric sounds, which are a rarity among world languages. Now for the consonants themselves. One of the most recognizable features of Xhosa is the click consonant. Xhosa has three main types of clicks. We have dental clicks, we have lateral clicks, and then we have the postalveolar clicks. And each of these has its own variations. In fact, to be more precise, we have dental clicks, or two types of dental clicks. We have the central dental and the lateral dental clicks, because both of those clicks, dental clicks, are produced by having the tongue interact with your teeth somehow. So it's the dental clicks, which is the central. We have the lateral clicks, which are the dental clicks as well. And then we have the postalveolar clicks. And as said, these have variations of their own. Now, if we look at the dental clicks, these are made with the tongue against the teeth, and the dental or central dental clicks, or more specifically, they are front, using the front teeth. This is the sound. So these are the dental clicks, central dental clicks. And then we have the lateral click. The lateral click is also dental in a sense, because you have a focus on the sides of the mouth, or the teeth along the sides. So you have your tongue against the inner parts of your teeth on the sides of your mouth. And an example of this one is And then lastly, we have the postalveolar click. This click is It's a popping sound, and it's made with the tongue that is placed against the roof of the mouth. So those are the basic or the plain clicks that are found in the Xhosa language. And as said, these have variations of their own. So when we look at the dental clicks, the central dental click, which is the plain version is as in cela, to ask, cela, ask. And it has all these clicks have the same variations. That is, they have the aspirated version, they have the slack voice version, they have the nasal version, they have the slack voice nasal, and then they have the glottalized nasal. So in essence, there's one plain click with 5 variations, making it 6 per each type of click: dental, lateral, and postalveolar. Each have 6, which is what makes up the 18 clicks in total in the Xhosa language. Now, The dental clicks again, it's ca, 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 the tongue against your front teeth, ca, cela, ask. The aspirated version, cha, 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 chuba, to peel, or chuba, peel, which is an instructive verb, chuba, peel. We have the slack voice, it's ca, 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 gcoba, gcobisa, to apply lotion to your skin, gcoba, gcobisa. The other term for that is ukuthambisa ngesixhosa, gcoba, gcobisa, ca, ca, ca. Then we have the nasal version, nca, which is a pre-nasalized version, nca, 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 ncuma, smile, ncuma, smile. The slack voice nasal, or it's the slack voice that's pre-nasalized. So it comes up as nca, nca, nca. The slack voice is ca, the nasal is nca. Then the slack voice nasal is nca, 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 nca. An example is inca, inca, grass, inca. And then lastly, we have the glottalized nasal, which is as in incl, which is a peak, like a mountain peak, for example. So this is the group of 6 dental central clicks: plain, aspirated, slack voice, nasal, slack voice nasal, and glottalized nasal. Now for the lateral clicks, which I said earlier, these are also dental or alveolar, excuse me, lateral clicks. The sound is produced by your tongue being placed, the sides of your tongue placed against the sides of your mouth, against the teeth on the sides of your mouth. These are the lateral clicks. The plain one being ka, 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 as in ela, ela, to tell or to report, ela. Then the aspirated version, ke, ka, 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 as in kela, kela, to slaughter, kela. Then we have the slack voice version, ka, 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 ka. An example is ka, which is ukuthi ka. This one is an idiophone. It's similar to the sound that your feet make when you jump and suddenly like land on the ground. Ukuthi ka. And like I said, it's an idiophone. And this Xhosa language is quite a rich inventory of idiophones or idiophonic sounds. Now for the nasal or pre-nasalized, it's nca, 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 as in nxiba, dress up, or dress or get dressed. Nxiba, nxiba. Again, nxiba is a verb, an instructive verb. So it's almost like telling someone to get dressed. So you say dress, dress up, get dressed. Nxiba, nca, nca, nca. The slack voice nasal, nca, 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 nca. Almost has a bass to it. Nca, nca. An example is incl, incl, which is noise. Ngolo, a noise, incl. An instructive verb version of it would be ngola, which would mean make a noise. Then we have the glottalized nasal, lastly, for this group of clicks, which is incaso is an example. Incaso, incaso, incaso. Incaso being support. Ukuxhasa is to support. Incaso is support. And lastly, the postalveolar clicks. These are the ones that make the popping sound. The plain one being ka, 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 kala, start, kala, start. The aspirated version, ka, 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 kela, get accustomed to something, to someone, get accustomed, kela. or get used to something. It's also a word that's used to sort of indicate disrespect, which is a similar, I think a concept is a concept in many languages. When you're saying to someone, uyandiqhela ngoku, meaning now you are being disrespectful on account of being accustomed to me or being too familiar with me. Ukuqhela, being familiar. Then we have the slack voice version. Ga, ga, ga. This is the slack voice version. Again, the slack voice, these are the ones that almost have this bass sound to them. Ga. An example again is gi, which is again another idiophone. Gi, which is to make a sudden appearance. When someone says, wati gi, it's like you just appeared out of nowhere or you make a sudden appearance. Uti gi. And again, idiophones, these are words that depict the sensory experience with marked forms, or rather, it's the use of sound imitation to express action, to express manner or property. But idiophones are almost like words that are taken straight out of one's experience or the experience of life itself. Uguti xa was the lateral version. Uguti qi is the alveolar version. An example that is, it's an alveolar example of an idiophone that is produced by a word that is that contains the slack voice postalveolar click. And then we have the nasal version of this click. Nasal being ng, 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 ng. So it's pre-nasalized. You pre-nasalize words in a sense in writing, for example, by putting the nasals in front of them. For example, we have the m. These are sounds that are produced via the nasal cavity. N and m. Those are examples of nasals. So with these nasals sort of preceding the click itself, in a sense, these are pre-nasalized, or it's a pre-nasalization process for the clicks. Nga, 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 nga is an example. And the example of a word here is ngaba, discuss, ngaba. Slack voice nasal, n, as in incl, which is cold, incl, cold. An example in use would be uzawungenwa yingqele, you'll catch a cold. Kungena being to enter, so literally saying you might have cold like enter your body. Uzawungenwa yingqele, you'll catch a cold. Ingqele, cold. Lastly, we have the glossalized nasal, which is nk, nk. An example, inkai, inkai. Oh my goodness. This one is Afrikaans, I suppose, bleskop. I don't know even if it's a proper Afrikaans expression. It's when you have your hair completely cut on your head, and that is called inkai. So that's it for the clicks, the dental clicks, the lateral clicks, and the postalveolar clicks. We have 6 each. We have the plain, and then the plain comes in various versions of that of those sounds. We've now covered the clicks, and we can now move on to the next group of consonants. Because beyond clicks, Xhosa has a range of other consonants that include plosives, fricatives, affricates, and others. So let's move on to the next group of consonants and look at plosives. What are plosives? Plosives are those consonant sounds that are produced by stopping airflow and then releasing it. And these, similar to how the clicks are organized, can also be organized into further categories. For example, we have the labial plosives. We have the dental alveolar plosives, which are central dental, similar to the clicks. We have the postalveolar, and we have the velaric or the velar plosives. So for the most part, these are similar to the click consonant, except for the labials. And in this case, for plosives, the labials are actually bilabials because they involve the use of both the upper and the lower lip. So looking at these, we have the further categories again beyond these. So each of these will be subdivided further into different types of each type. For example, for the label, sorry, for the labial, we have the ejective, we have the aspirated, we have the slack voice, and then we have the implosive bilabials. It's the same for the dental as well. We have ejective, aspirated, and slack voice. We don't have implosives for any of the other types, and you'll see why, or at least you can understand why. So let's look at these. Let's look at the bilabials first. The plosive bilabials. First, we have the ejective, which is p. An example of that is ukupena pena, the tossing and turning that is as a result of someone being afflicted by pain, or like, when someone grabs their stomach when they're suffering from some sort of ailment, that is called ukupena pena, So it's pa, an ejective, pa, pa, pa. And then the aspirated version, pa, pa, pheka, to cook. Rather, the instructive verb is pheka, cook, as an instruction, pheka. And then we have the slack voice. Again, slack voice, sort of like a bass version, so to speak, if you want to sort of visualize it. I don't know if you can visualize sounds, but to sort of see it or understand it better, it's almost like adding bass to that, like a slack voice. It's a b, as in booba, die or pass away. And then the implosive version, which is unique, which is a unique plosive out of the 4 different variants or versions or types of plosives. It's implosive ba, ba, ba. So you are pulling a in, ba, ba, as in bulela, thank, or show gratitude. So these are the bilabials. As you can see, both your upper and lower lips are involved in the production of the sound. Pa, 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 ba, ba, and ba, ba. Okay. Moving on to the next group, the dental. Like I said, the dental has the ejective, aspirated, and slack voice, but not necessarily the implosive version of that. I think the sound is practically impossible to produce. But looking at the ejective dental is a da, 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 da. It's the dental alveolar. So the production of the sound, again, it's central, meaning that the tongue is placed in the front teeth, central, like in the central part of your teeth, which happens to be positioned in front. And you can also produce the same sound in the alveolar ridge. That's why it's dental alveolar. So you can place your tongue in the alveolar, just at the beginning of the alveolar ridge. So you have the teeth, then you have the alveolar ridge, And then beyond that, you have the postalveolar, and then there's the palate or the palatal region, which stretches like all the way to the just before the back. So with this sound, da, da, it's an alveolar sound, dental alveolar. So your tongue is placed in the at the beginning of the alveolar ridge. You block the sound, da, and then you release it, da, 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 da. An example is tema or tema, which is to cut down a tree. Again, the aspirated version, ta, ta, which is a common sound in English, ta, 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 theta, which is a speak, theta, talk. And then we have the slack voice. The slack voice is da, 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 da. As you can see, all of these sounds are produced by your tongue being placed in the alveolar ridge and blocking the sound from there and then releasing it. Da, as in dobula, denga, or dobula, to shoot. And so that's it for the dental alveolar consonants or plosive consonants. And then we can look at the postalveolar ones. Again, we have the ejective, kya, the aspirated, kya, the slack voice, gya. So examples of these for kya, kya is kyala, 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 which is to plant. Kyala, plant, it's an instructive verb, plant. And the aspirated version, kya, kyola, kyola, it's to accuse, kyola, accuse. The slack voice, kya, ikyasi, ikyasi, which I believe is a nativization, so to speak, of a borrowed word. You know, ikyasi, ikyasi, which refers to a coat or a jacket, a coat or jacket. So the postalveolars are kya, kya, and gya. Let's look at the last group of these plosive consonants. Sorry, it's kya, kya, kya. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still stuck on the postalveolar now. Now for the velar or the velaric plosives, it's ka, ka, ka. That's the ejective one. Ka, 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 ka. An example is impuku, 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 a mouse. The aspirated version, ka, 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 kauleza, hurry up, kauleza, hurry up. And then we have the slack voice version, which is a ga, 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 goba, bend, goba, bend. And when you look at these consonants in this way, it sort of it shows a very interesting way of looking at them or understanding them. For instance, one wouldn't ordinarily associate the ga sound with ga as being related in any way, you know. And but when you look at them in terms of the mechanisms by which the sounds are produced, for instance, you know the ga, ka, and ga are essentially the same group of sounds. And so ka, when you voice it, adding that like basal sound, that bass sound, it becomes ga. So essentially it's the same, but having transformed by adding that slack voice sort of variation to it. And it's not immediately obvious, even to speakers of the language, that these are really related to kya and gya, for example, uta and da, for example, and upa and ba, for example. But when you look at them by way of these airstream mechanisms and how the configuration of your tongue, the mouth, are set up, then you are able to see like those relationships in a more obvious way. And so those are the plosives. And now we can move on to the next group, which is fricatives. The fricatives are created with a continuous airflow. So these are the ones where you just like release the air continuously through your mouth. And an example of this is, okay, before we look at examples, again, we can sort of group them further. The high level groups being the labiodental ones. So when it's labiodental, it means that it's a combination of your lips or one lip with your teeth in order to produce this sound. And then we have the dental alveolars again. First, those are central, and then we have the lateral ones. And then we have the postalveolar sounds, we have the velaric sounds, and then we have glottal sounds. And these come in two variants again. You have the voiceless versions, and then you have the slack voice versions. And now let's look at the labiodental fricatives. That's the voiceless. That is the voiceless. So as you can see, it's labiodental, meaning that you have your upper lip and your lower teeth, essentially involved in making the sound. So that's the voiceless one, as you can see, or as you can hear. You know, it's just a continuous airflow in that configuration of your mouth. And then you have the slack voice version of that, which is again, the relationship might not be immediately apparent unless you are looking at it like in a systematic way this way. So voiceless, labiodental. An example of that is funda. And then you have the slack voice, labiodental, fricative. Veza, funda, which is read or learn. And then you have veza, 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 show or reveal. Moving on to the next one, the dental alveolar ones, the central dental alveolar fricatives. We again have the voiceless, which is an example is susa, remove, susa or take away, susa, remove. The voice or the slack voice version is zzz, zzz, zuza, which is gain, zuza. Then we have the lateral dental alveolar sounds or fricatives. Again, these ones would be produced by configuring your tongue in such a way that it makes contact with your the sides of your mouth, which are obviously your teeth on the sides of your mouth, hence dental alveolar, and lateral, which means it's related to the sides of your mouth in terms of the configuration there. For the voiceless, we have hlala, sit, hlala, sit. For the slack voice, we have dlala, play, dlala, play, and then we can move on to the postalveolar sounds. Again, we have the voiceless, sh, sh, sh. An example of that is shesha, to hurry, shesha, hurry up, shesha. And then we have the slack voice, zh, zh, zh. So The voiceless is sh, the slack voice is zh. Those are the postalveolar fricatives in terms of the consonants that are available in Xhosa. And we move on to the velar or the velaric fricatives. And these ones are for the voiceless and for the slack voice. And we have ikhamwa for the voiceless, ikhamwa, which is a monster. And then for the slack voice, we have ukuhorisa, to scare someone or to intimidate someone. Ukuhorisa, which is also derived from the word for iroho, which I think is a monster, something that is scary. And lastly, we have the glottal fricatives. For the glottal fricatives, we have the sound ha for the voiceless, ha, ha, ha. And for the slack voice is ah, ah, ah. And eluhaini, something that's not serious. When someone says tetanji into eluhaini, it means it's something that you cannot take seriously. And hamba, which is the slack voice version, hamba, hamba, which is walk, leave, or go. Hamba, go. We are hamba, he's walking. And so that's it for the fricatives. F, v, s, z, l, l, sh, j, h, r, h. So that's the labiodental, the dental alveolar central, the dental alveolar lateral, the postalveolar, the velaric, and the glottal. And so we can then move on to the next group of consonants, and this group is the affricates. Affricates are a mixture of fricatives and plosives. So it's a mixture of these two sounds that we've already looked at. We have here the dental alveolar affricates, we have the postalveolar affricates, and we also have the velaric affricates. And as you've already seen, so far as the patterns are concerned, the base being the ejective is ts, its aspirated version ts, its slack voice version z. That's the dental alveolar affricates. And then when we look at the postalveolar versions, types, we have the ejective ch, and the aspirated version of that ch, and then we have the slack voice version, which is j, j, j. And then we have the velaric affricate, which only has the ejective version. Qa, qa, qa. So those are the affricate sounds, the affricate consonants in the Xhosa language. To start over, let's look at the dental again, the dental alveolar. It's ts, ts. An example of that is tsiba, which means jump. And the aspirated version, ta, ta. An example of that is isitsaba, which is a crown. And then we have the slack voice version, which is dza, dza. Dza is borrowed in the language, so you'll only find it in borrowed words or words that are sort of nativized, but from borrowed words. So we don't have pure Xhosa words that contain the sound z, z. So that is a borrowing. Something worth noting is that that is a borrowing. And then we have, moving on to the postalveolar versions, which is a cha, cha, the ejective cha, cha. An example of that is chita, chita, to spit, chita. And the aspirated version, cha, 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 chisa, burn, chisa, burn or burn something. Chisa or cause something to burn. And then the ja, 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 ja. An example is jama. That's the slack voice version. The example is jama, jama. Ukujama is to stay, jama, stay, an instructive verb meaning stay. And lastly, the velaric or the velar affricate, we have ka, ka, an example being kazula, which means to tear, tear something. Ukukazula is to tear, kazula is tear, as an instruction to a single person. An instruction to a plural, for example, would be kazulani, which means you are instructing multiple people to tear something. Okay, so those are the affricates, and there's other consonant sounds in Xhosa, which we've already encountered, by the way, as sometimes sort of being added to the words that we've already seen, to the sounds that we've already seen, sometimes through the process of pre-nasalization, when we are forming, for example, the nasal clicks like nga and nga. So there are those pure nasals. We also have approximants, which are sort of a category of liquids in terms of linguistics. So we have nasals and we have approximates. We also have semi-vowels, but we'll cover those last. So looking at nasals, we have nasals that are labials. Again, labial in this instance means bilabial, meaning engaging both the upper and the lower lip in the production of the sound. We have the dental alveolar, which are central, meaning they use the central teeth, which happen to be the front teeth. And then we have the postalveolar and the velar nasals. An example of the labials, we have the fully voiced labials, like and then the slack voice labials are Then we have the dental alveolar sounds. There again we have the fully voice and the slack voice and the postalveolar is nya, 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 and the slack voice version of that being nya, nya, nya. And lastly, we have the velaric nasal, which is nga, nga, nga. And so moving back, the labials or the bilabial nasals, as in ma, 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 mama for mother, and the slack voice being molo. Hello. Molweni would be hello, referencing multiple people, so that would be a plural version of the word. And we have n, the dental, which is nina. As an example, nina means you in the plural. Wena would be you, referring to one person. Nina would be you, referring to multiple people. And then we have n, which is the slack version, the slack voiced version. And an example of that is Nancy. Nancy, here it is, Nancy. And the postalveolar being nya, nya, nya. An example being nyoka or inyoka, a snake. And we also have the slack voice version there, nya, 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 nya. And nga, which is the vela, nga. Ngena, enter, ngena, enter. And yeah, an example of inyeke being lips, which is not a very polite word. Imilebe would be another word for lips. Inyeke being lips, but it's not exactly a polite word in reference to the lips. Okay, we also have the approximates or the liquids, and the native. Here we have just 4 sounds. That is like 2 sort of basic sounds with their slack voice variants. So we have the fully voiced sound la, 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 which is a dental alveolar sound. And an example of that is lula, easy, lula, easy. Or ilula, it's easy. And then we have the slack voice version of that, which is l, as in luma, luma, bite or take a bite. And then we have 2 other dental alveolar sounds, which one is fully voiced and its version, that is, and it's a slack voice version. This is the r sound. The r sound is not native to the Xhosa language. It doesn't exist in the Xhosa language. So this one is another borrowing that actually came through the language through contact with other languages like English and Afrikaans. And ra is an example. And you'll find that for words like festire, coming from the word, from the Afrikaans word venster. So it was sort of localized in a sense, or integrated into the Xhosa language. So it was like sort of converted to make it more palatable for the Xhosa tongue. And it was called festile or festire. So Xhosa people, especially like in the rural areas, could not pronounce the R. And so they replaced the R with the approximant L, which would mean instead of festire, it would be called festile. And there's many other words that Xhosa people wouldn't be able to pronounce because of the R, and they would just replace the R with the L, which is the closest sound to the L. They're both dental alveolar sounds. They both central in terms of the positioning of the tongue, and so it's very easy for Xhosa people to sort of replace one with the other. Many Xhosa people now are able to pronounce the R, but you'll find with older people, especially in the rural areas, they can't even pronounce the R. Instead, they would say L. Another version of the R sound is its slack voice version, which is r. Yeah? In words like rama, which is the margarine or spread, butter spread, whatever the exact term is for that, rama. And again, some people, especially the older people, would say lama instead of rama, due to the struggle in pronouncing the sound r or r. So that's it for the approximates. And the l sound and the l sound, these are liquids. Obviously they are approximate in a sense that they almost sit somewhere between, like they're almost approximations of each other. I remember my daughter, Singwe, my eldest daughter, she used to sit with me initially when I used to work on this on the Xhosa Roots Dictionary, and I was always fascinated by how she pronounced R herself. She did spend much of her time in the Eastern Cape, specifically in Umtata, and I was always fascinated by how she pronounced red, in English, that is. She wouldn't exactly say red, but red. She would see something that approximates an L and an R. Red, 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 red. I suppose that's why these are approximates. They sit right at the edge, and one can easily mistake one for the other. And so that's it for the approximate sounds. Now let's look at the last consonant sounds in the language of isiXhosa, as it's referred to natively. Isi being the a noun class prefix. We have lastly the semi-vowels, and these would be two types, postalveolar and the velar semi-vowels, and both come with two variations. One is fully voiced. The other variation would be the slack voiced version, which engages the larynx, like in the production of the sound. So for the postalveolar, we have a yeah, and the fully that's the fully voiced version, and the variation that is slack voice is yeah. So we have yeah and yeah and yeah, fully voiced yeah, and slack voice yeah. An example being iemka. It's leaving, it's going, it's departing. Iemka. And the slack voice version is yamkela, yamkela, accept or welcome, yamkela. And then the velaric semi-vowel, the velar semi-vowel, the fully voiced version is wa. And the slack voice version is wa. An example is iwonga, which is status, as in social status. Iwonga, amawonga, social statuses. And the fully voice would be wa, and the example there is wemka. He or she left. Wemka. He or she left. And you'll see here again an appearance of an elongated vowel. The a vowel is elongated to depict past tense. Wemka would be the present tense. Wemka would be the past tense. So wemka is referring to a single person, he or she left. But if you were referring to many people who left, it would be bemka. meaning that they left. So we have wa iwonga status and wa wemunga, he or she left. And that is it for the semi-vowels. That is it for the consonant sounds in the Xhosa language. And I think lastly we can take a look at another interesting phenomenon in the language of Xhosa, and that would be the tones. Xhosa is a tonal language, meaning that a change in pitch can change the meaning of a word. And so Xhosa has uses primarily two phonemic tones or pitch levels, and these are high pitch and a low pitch. And so let's look at examples of how this manifests itself in the language. And first we look at a high tone example. And the word here, an example of a word here is ubulele, 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 ubulele. So the u, which is in high pitch, the meaning of the phrase ubulele is he or she killed. He or she killed. If you look at a word that is spelled exactly the same, ubulele, ubulele, you'll see there the first u, or the first u appearance of the u vowel there is in a low pitch, and so the meaning there is you were sleeping, ubulele, ubulele, you were sleeping. And it's worth noting here that in the written script, in the written language, there's no distinction made between high and low pitch, and so words would be spelled exactly the same, and yet I suppose you can read the pitch according to the context of the sentence that you are reading, but generally there is no distinction made in writing between high and low pitch, even though this is done in some other languages. That distinction is made through the diacritic marks or the vowels that contain those marks. And let's look at another example. Here we start with a low pitch version. We have the word simamele, simamele, meaning we are listening. You'll see here all the vowels are low pitched, simamele. Now the high pitched version, where the second last vowel is changed to a high pitch vowel, where we say simamele, simamele. In this case, this means listen to us, listen to us. And so simamele, we are listening, simamele, listen to us. And that's it. There are plenty of other examples where a change in tone actually changes the meaning in the word, of the word in Xhosa. And I'm sure you'll encounter many of these as you explore the language. And that's it for tones. And also that's a wrap for our first episode on Xhosa Phonology. I hope you've enjoyed this in-depth look at the sounds of isiXhosa, or the sounds that make up the Xhosa language, that make up this rich language in terms of its inventory of sounds, and the difference in terms of the types of sounds that are generated in the language. And don't forget to like, to subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of our next videos. Again, this is the first episode, and we'll be making more videos in the near future. And also for bite-sized clips of this lesson, you can please follow us on Facebook and on TikTok. and Instagram as well. I'll be leaving links in the description below. And diyabulela kakhulu. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.